This video is going to cover how to place images in an HTML file, and this will be the final result. One of the things that this really covers is, number one, how to position images on a page, and also talking about the difference between a background image and a regular image. Sometimes that can be a little confusing. So the first thing you do is click this link. By the way, I get to this page from the home page to assignment 8, and then you scroll down to this link here where it says images provided here, and download that. Now this will download it to the folder, to your downloads folder, and it'll look like this. And if you double click it, you'll have an images, you'll have a miscellaneous, which is the underwater TTF, which that's a font that I used, and then here's the paragraph text. So the first thing you need to do, and I'm just going to build this from the ground up, is I'm going to create a new folder on my desktop, and I'm going to call it image demo. If I could spell, that would be awesome. Okay, so there's my image demo. And then I'm going to go back to that downloads folder here, and I'm going to copy all of these. Or you can take the folder itself and copy that, Command C, and then go back to the desktop, to the image demo folder. That anyway, this is going to be my website. That's the main thing. How you do this, how you bring the images in here, is up to you. There's many ways to do it. But here's the important part. Inside this folder, which is going to be my website, is the root level. And in the root level, I have the images folder with the images in it. A lot of students, what they'll do is they'll create an images folder, and then they'll copy and paste that whole downloads folder inside. And so that gets really complicated. You should really only have 2 levels in this. So in Dreamweaver now, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to do site, new site. Call it image demo. And I'm going to connect to that folder that I just created on the desktop. All right, so you should just see that images folder there. Do not connect to the images folder. People do that as well. Just choose that, click save. All right, so it should look like that. Should see your images folder in there. Okay, next thing I'm going to do, file, new, HTML. And I'm going to save it as, I'll just call it image demo.html. Okay, keep on doing that. And then over here in my code, I'm going to write a title. You may notice that I put a lot of content in there because Google will read that, though in this case I don't care. Create your style tag. Okay, and the first thing we're going to do, and I'm going to just go back to my reference here, wrong browser. First thing, I'm looking at this, the water is a background, as is this beige background color. So the first thing I'm going to do to set this up is I'm going to set up the background image. Obviously you can't do that with CSS, that's an image. And I'm going to set up the background color. So the way to do that is to create a style that applies to your body tag. So this would be a body tag style. And then what I'll do is I will put in background And this will be, I'm going to spell this out. I'm not going to do the shorthand version of it. Background image. And then what you do is you navigate down to URL. Some reason, and that's not the most intuitive thing. You just have to remember that. So background image, URL, hit return, and hopefully you'll get a browse indicator, which you can just click return to open up your browser. And there's my images file, and what I'm going for is the water.jpg here. All right. So this is a background image, and just to be clear on that, if I type an H1, I'm running out of space here. If I type an H1, this is text here, and then I look at it up here, things can be placed on top of images like that because they're background images. You can put stuff on top of that. That's really important to note. Just going to delete that for now. Now the problem is this is not what I want. I want this to tile, and this is what you're seeing is that the image itself is just one small piece and it's tiling endlessly. So I'm going to have to fix that. So so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say background repeat, background hyphen repeat, and you can do no repeat, which will then you'll just see the one image by itself. So that's what the image actually looks like. I'm going to do repeat hyphen X. X is horizontal, Y is vertical. So by repeating X, I now have this going across the top, which is what I did want. And then I'm going to put a semicolon in there. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do background hyphen color here. And then I'm going to do the color picker. And what I'm going to do to make this blend seamlessly in is I'm going to color pick the very edge of this image. And to do that, you're just going to click the little eyedropper tool and drag it up to here. And then, oh, I don't know why I did that. And then it will apply that image automatically. So it looks like the image is now blending seamlessly to the background. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the logo. So it looks like this. Your image, this is a image that I'm placing. So it's IMG, and then to get the attribute, it's SRC. Equals, and then it will give you a browse capability here. And then the image that I'm going for is the logo, this guy right here. I'm going to open that. And then you usually have a width and a height in here, but I don't need that. I'm just going to use the default width and height. But I do need what's called an alt text. And let me just close this tag here for just a second. The alt text, because this is an image, Google can't read this information, nor can screen readers for disabled, for the Disabilities Act. So I have to type in the alt the text that you're actually seeing in the image there, like that. Okay. Now I do have a bit of an issue here because of the implied style. So I'm going to have to get rid of that extra space on top. That's a margin, by the way, and that is in the body style. So the next thing I'm going to do is margin, and I don't want to get rid of it on the sides or the bottom, so I just want it from the top. Margin hyphen top colon, and then we'll just say 0. That gets rid of that margin on the top like that. Okay, next bit. Now I'm going to do a different version this time. I'm going to go to Insert Image. This is kind of how I like to do it because it's just a little bit faster. And I'm going to insert the title. And so that puts the image there. Now, what this does differently is it does apply the width and the height, it does give you all that. It writes out your code real nice, so it's kind of faster to do it that way. But we're going to deal with this issue. You know, usually what you're going to see here, the width and the height is indicating that it's 666 pixels wide. And for responsive-based design, that's going to be a bit of a problem, and I'll show you why here. I'm just going to look at this in a browser. Okay, so in a browser, if I were to close this, you'll see that the image just goes off the side of the page, so it's not responsive in any way. It's okay if the logo's not responsive because it's small enough that it'll fit in the screen anyway, but this guy, I'm going to change my values. So instead of a set width, I'm going to do, and I'm going to play with numbers here. I'm going to do 50% and height auto. That will resize the image. So if I go back to the browser now, which I lost that. See how it resizes automatically. So that's a better way to do it, though you don't have real exact numbers. It could be a little bit larger. So by doing 666, you are sort of making it static there. Again, the alt. So that's important. Now the problem is that this is not where I want it located. And the deal with images, I'm just going to put some text in after an image like this. The deal with images is that text always goes at the very bottom. It's almost like the image is another font or another letter. And so the text is just going to go right in after that. That's also the same with that. So what I need to do is I need to kind of change that up a little bit. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to, first of all, actually I'm going to do a couple of things. This is very low in SEO. So I'm going to put this in an H1. And by putting that title into an H1, that gives this alt text H1 standing for Google. But the problem is an H1 is a block style, so it's going to expand all the way across the page. So I have to turn that off. So the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to create a class style. And I'm doing a class style because I don't want this to apply to all H1s. And I'm going to do display inline. And that turns off my block style aspect. And then I'm going to apply it to the H1, which is class inline. There. And so I'm back to square one again. But that now gives me a little bit more leeway. The next problem that I have is that I have to turn this into an align so I can wrap the text, because right now the text isn't wrapping. So to wrap the text, I'm going to create what's called a float style, and we'll call this left, or yeah, I'll just call it left. And to align an object to the left or to the right, you do not align, but float. And that's just something you have to remember. And then I'll do float left. And then I'm going to apply that class. And now I have full control over this. And what I'll do, since I've already I've created a class here, a class inline, but I'm going to go ahead and let's just put a margin top on this, and I'll say 20 pixels, something like that. Whoops, wrong place. Let's say 50 pixels. Okay, so the problem that I had here is you notice that I did this on that H1 inline class style that I did, and you see that it's not applying here. So what I'm going to do in the next video is I'm going to talk about how to fix this issue right here. So the issue that I had just in the past is I had put a inline class on my H1, and the inline class turned off the block of my H1, and then I put a margin on there. But here's the problem. Now that the H1's no longer a block, margin doesn't work anymore. So what is a block, however, is the image inside the H1. So I'm going to show you a new style type. It's called a compound style, and it looks like this. I say H1, and then I say IMG, and what this indicates is that any IMG tag that's inside an H1 tag will have this style applied to it. It's a great way to target individual elements, but other elements will not have this targeted. And I'm going to put the margin top inside that one. And now you can see I can control exactly where I want this. As a matter of fact, the inline style, the float left one with the image, I usually put a padding right because I don't like the elements just butting up against each other like that. Okay, so the next one. Oh, one other little thing, just to make a point about the difference between a placed image and a background image. As you can see, I have a placed image on top of the background image, and I can't actually select the background image, but I can select the place image. And of course, as we know now, you can put stuff on top of a background image, but try to put stuff on top of a placed image, and both can't exist in the same place. All right. So just be aware of the difference between that. One is a placed image with the IMG tag. The other is placed as a style in the tag that you are putting the background image in. All right. So the next image, I'm just going to go ahead in my code here. I'm going to insert image, and this is that subtitle. It's called Road to Enlightenment. And again, don't forget your alt tag. I'm not sure I spelled that right, but whatever. Okay, so the problem I have here, that this image is just placed right next to my H1, which is an inline style because it's not a block. So one way we can actually fix this and solve our Google problem too is put that in a block tag. Boom. So that now puts that on its own layer. Now this tag, let's do, I'll call this subtitle. And again, I'm creating classes for this because I don't want to apply this to all H2s. But this one is going to have a margin top. And I believe it's 100 pixels. So that puts 100 pixels up there. And then I apply it to my H2. And sure enough, it puts it down about where I want it to be. Okay. Problem though is that I want this to be center aligned. And the thing is that to align something center, and this is kind of the rule of thumb. To align something center, you put it in a container, in this case my H2, and then you say text align center. Do not do align content. These are all advanced elements, and I know it looks like it would make more sense. It doesn't work. Just take my word for it. But text align center will work as long as you're applying it to the container that the object is in. and now it's aligned center like that. By the way, if you want an image to be aligned left or right, or a layout object or anything, it is float left. So here are your alignments. Align left and right is a float left, float right. To align center is to apply text align center in a container object. So hopefully that's clear. The last little bit, very simple. I'm just going to go into my download file, and I'm just going to open that text up, copy and paste it. And this goes back to some stuff we talked about earlier, but in design view, my recommendation is hit return and then paste, and then all your p tags will then be applied the way you'd want them to.